Hello! It's Raimi, and today I am so excited because I have not done a wrap-up video I think since October. I had a really good reading month this February, and so I wanted to do a little reading wrap-up, just kind of talk about the books that I was really excited to be reading in February. So yeah, let's get into it. So I have a stack here, and then there are a handful of books that I read that I don't have the physical copy of, but we can start here and then go from there. The first book that I read in February is Mountains Made of Glass by Scarlett St. Clair. This is a short little book and it really took me by surprise. I picked it up on a whim when I was at Barnes & Noble doing some book shopping, and I spotted it on my way out of the store. I read through the synopsis and I was hooked. I was like, why does this sound so good? I've never heard of this book. I have not seen really anybody be reading this book. So it is a fairy tale retelling, which it says that on the front, which is really what caught my attention because I really enjoy fairy tale retellings. And then I go to read the back and it's like a combination of so many different fairy tale retellings. That night I actually sat down and read this entire book cover to cover. I haven't done that in so long. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I think that honestly, like, I don't say this very much about books, but I would have enjoyed having more book. I could have done with more detail. I could have done with spending more time with these characters. I think that she has said that she's going to keep doing like this fairy tale retelling series, but with different characters. So I'm really looking forward to picking up more of these whenever they're published. One thing I will say, and I did say this in a previous video, is I would highly recommend, if you decide to pick up this book and read it, to read the author's note when you're done. Normally I kind of skim through it, but it's not something that I read all the time. This was so cool because the author actually went through and explained the different fairy tales that she pulled from, why and what aspects that she pulled from them into her story. And I thought that that really added to this story and made it feel a little bit more than just a smutty fairy tale retelling. And I think that it gave it a lot more depth and a lot more purpose and reason behind all of the little details. I loved that this world was not all fairies and sunshine and rainbows. It was more in the realm, if you've read The Cruel Prince, kind of that dark, mysterious, beautiful but dangerous kind of fairy tale vibe, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So yes, Mountains Made of Glass was a great way to start off February. Next, I read Betting on You by Lynn Painter. I listened to this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoy Lynn Painter's young adult books. I enjoy them a lot more than her adult books. This book was really interesting because you get the young adult aspects that Lynn Painter is so good at writing with a little bit more steam than I was going into expecting. These teenagers are a little bit older. They're, I think, 17 and 18 or 17, and they're exploring going into like the end of high school, starting college, thinking about real life choices. I don't know exactly how I feel about it. I think just with my personal preference and keeping the young adult space young adult, I think it might have been a little bit too much for my personal opinion. But did I enjoy the book? Yes, I thought it was a good book. I enjoyed the characters, very quirky, like Lynn Painter. Her writing is very quirky and her characters are quirky, so I really enjoyed that. I'm a little bit on the fence about this one of just my personal feelings about it, so take that as you will either way. Then I read When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I am so surprised that I put this book off for so long, and I actually wound up reading Practice Makes Perfect before this book, which is a little bit out of order. They're kind of standalones, but they are set in the same world with kind of the same group of characters, and it was a 5-star. It was so good. I really enjoyed how Sarah Adams wrote the main character, Amelia Rose. She is a famous singer, she's a celebrity, and she gets stranded in this small town and things kind of unfold from there. She gets stranded in Rome, Kentucky, not Rome, Italy. I thought that the back and forth and the banter and the dynamic were so interesting. I really appreciated the way that the characters handled conflict. I was just thoroughly enjoying this book. I love Sarah Adams. I'm so excited for one of her new releases, The Rule Book. It's coming out, I believe, in April. Next, I read Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in the Letters of Enchantment duology, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Divine Rivals was a 5 out of 5 for me. This one just didn't quite hit the mark for a sequel that I was looking for. I think that there were aspects of it that I just didn't enjoy as much as the first one. I still think it was good. I really enjoyed the conclusion, and I'm so glad that I read it, so now I know the conclusion of the story. I still bawled my eyes out throughout Ruthless Vows as well as Divine Rivals, both of them. So I definitely got emotionally attached to what was happening in the story. I just don't think it hit quite as hard as Divine Rivals. I'm not really gonna say much more than that because I really don't want to spoil anything. Next, I read The Naturals. This one was my book club book for this month. Here's the thing. I did not give this a rating. I finished it, but I did not give this a rating because these are the kinds of books that that are complicated to me. So this is a story about a 17-year-old named Cassie who gets put into the Naturals program with the FBI, I believe. And she gets thrown into this group of other naturals, they call them, and they're teens that have special skills or special talents that aid the FBI in solving cold cases. But Cassie has gone through something really traumatic, and the story kind of follows along with that. I guess I just kind of went into this a little bit naive. I have really become a little sensitive to thrillers and mysteries and crime type novels because sometimes I think that they can go into more detail than I care to read. So this was kind of like that. I was a little bit surprised because this is a young adult book and I don't know exactly the parameters of what can be talked about and what can't be talked about, but it was a lot. It was quite a bit of detail in certain disturbing areas that I was surprised about. You do get the perspective of a criminal who does do bad things to people. It was disturbing, to say the least. So here's the thing. The story, the details, the character, I was so intrigued. I was so intrigued and I had to know what was going to happen. I had to know how this ended. At the same time, I was disturbed and I didn't enjoy the details that were given that were disturbing parts of the story. So this is where I get kind of stuck on books like this, where I don't necessarily feel like I can give it a rating because I don't think it's fair to give it a low rating because it was written well. How it was executed I thought was very interesting and propelled the story forward and was so fast paced, and I was very, very interested to see what was going to happen. At the same time, I didn't enjoy reading it. It was a lot for me personally. I can be a little bit sensitive to this stuff and I know that. So take that as you will. Take that for what it is. Next, I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This book has gone a little bit crazy. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I also did some fun tabbing. This kind of leaves off with room for there to be either expansion on this same story or potentially a story told from another character, which I'm excited about because I really enjoyed the world that Ali Hazelwood built. It is not a fantasy book. A lot of people that I've seen are going around talking about that this is a fantasy book. It's not. it's a paranormal romance. A lot of the books that I read have paranormals and are fantasy and have romance. This really kind of takes place in the natural world, like our world today. There is just other creatures like vampires and werewolves, but there are also humans, there's politics, and it is a marriage of, I don't know what it's called. Not a marriage of convenience, but a marriage of like political alignment, a marriage of, I know there's a term for it and you're probably like yelling it at me. They got married for political reasons. I really enjoyed the main character, Misery. She is hilarious. I don't even know how exactly to describe her, but she is just dry and funny and complex and kind of weird and quirky, and she's been through a lot, and I just really enjoyed her. I had never read a strict paranormal romance before, so that was a little bit surprising. Not necessarily in a bad way, just not exactly what I was expecting, because so many people were saying that this is a fantasy book, but I really enjoyed her writing. I felt like it really flew by while also challenging my vocabulary. She uses some very big and different words that I have never seen before. Next, I finished Charm by Tracy Wolff, which is the last book in the Crave series, I think it's called. I gave it a 4.25. I think that the ending was a little strange to me, but overall, I really enjoyed the conclusion of the story. I'm not gonna go into detail, but this was such a surprising series to me, and it was always one that I was kind of judging a little bit, being like, oh, it's just a copy of Twilight. I'm a Twilight lover. Like, I don't want to read a copy. I don't want anything to do with that. And then I can't remember who was talking about the Crave series. It was someone that I saw that I follow online, and they were like, just give it a try. Like, just give it a try. It's better than you think it's going to be. So I was needing an audiobook, and the Crave book popped up, and I was like, you know what? I'll read it. The first half of the Crave book is laughable. Honestly, how closely it compares to Twilight, even down to some dialogue being like almost exactly the same. Once you hit that halfway mark, man, does it diverge. Like, it really takes on its own, becomes an entirely different thing. It's kind of cheesy, it's kind of out there, but it was so good. I listened to every single one of the books, and I would highly recommend listening to them via audiobook. Sometimes fantasy can be a little bit hard to keep track of. For me personally, listening to audiobooks, these are not. I just flew through them, listening to them at like 2 times speed. Some of the audiobooks are very long, like one of them is 24 hours. It was a long one, but I still finished it within a reasonable amount of time. It didn't take me forever because I was actually excited to go back and listen to the audiobook and know what was going on. There were definitely moments throughout the series that I teared up, cried over certain characters and whatever was going on. I really enjoyed Grace, the main character. Her character arc through the story, her character development was so good. I felt like the last book probably could have been trimmed down. I feel like there were certain side quests, side tangents, a lot of like, do this to get to this, to get to this, to get to this, and then we'll get back to the original issue that's at hand, which I didn't love, but it was entertaining. It was interesting. It was about characters that I know and love, so I was not mad about it. The way that she created certain scenarios, different aspects of the world, different powers and abilities and magics and types of people and paranormals, and like it was honestly mind-blowing, the world that she was able to create. And last but certainly not freaking least, I finished Daisy Hates, which is the second book in the Magnolia Parks universe. I don't know if there's another term for the series. This was a lot. The first, probably like this far into the book, was a little bit just kind of like a medium to slow pace. We're learning about Daisy, we're learning about her background, we're learning about her everyday life, kind of who she involves herself with, and what is kind of hinting at unfolding, right? And then the last little bit, I flew through it. It was like boom, 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 boom. Stuff was happening and I was like, oh my gosh. I was just like, what is happening? Everything is happening and it is painful, and some of the things said was a lot and so painful, but so good. Jessa has such an interesting way of writing. I have never read anything remotely close to the way Jessa writes. It's so good, so lyrical without being too drawn out. I mean, it's definitely drawn out, but not to the point where it's unbearable. Man, does she do a good job of speaking the hearts of her characters. Wow, like I applaud her for that, because you really get to know the deep inner workings of these characters, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I am really excited to continue this series and jump into the next Magnolia Parks book. Also, these happened very simultaneously, so Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates happen on very similar timelines. So we're getting a lot of behind the scenes of what was going on with other characters during Magnolia Parks, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if the next two books are gonna be like that, because this definitely left off on kind of a cliffhanger with what is going to be happening with Daisy in the near future. I'm really curious, are we gonna get any information on that in Magnolia Parks, the third one? Or am I gonna have to wait until Daisy Hates, the fourth one, to get any sort of information on what's going on with Daisy? I don't know, but I really want to know. I'm curious to know. So we are going to be probably reading the next Magnolia Parks very soon. Those are all the 8 books that I read. It was 8? Was it 8? Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 books I read in February. It was a great reading month. Everything was a 4 or a 5. I would say that is a reading success in my opinion. I was very much in a reading slump in January, so February just really said absolutely not. Like, we are not slumping anymore, and just came in and said, we are only reading good books. And that's what happened. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books and love them, or your opinions or whatnot. I would love to chat in the comments about it. I love talking about books. I don't know, that's it. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Happy reading, bye.